Am I the asshole for telling my wife to drop an issue that our daughter is having at school?
My wife, 36F, and I, 35M, have 2 kids, 10F and 8M. We live in a school district that has already started school and our kids have been in classes for about 2-3 weeks now. Our daughter has been having an issue with her lunch being stolen a few times a week. The school offers breakfast and lunch, but it isn't free. We always put money in accounts for the kids in case they want to eat school lunch instead of what we pack for them, so our daughter doesn't go hungry even if her lunch is taken. She also doesn't have any dietary restrictions. My wife works night shift as a nurse, so I am the one getting the kids up and ready for school in the morning, including packing lunches.
And yes, I put their names on everything. My daughter has told me every time that her lunch was taken. The first few times I asked her to just eat school lunch, but she doesn't always like what they offer. So, I started making 2 lunches for her and told her to hide one in her backpack instead of bringing it into the classroom where the other lunches are. I've also talked with her teacher about it and she said she would be more vigilant about the lunches. But that hasn't stopped them from being stolen. My daughter is not the only one having this issue. My wife is up in arms about it and wants to bring it up to the principal, superintendent, school board, etc. She thinks that whoever is stealing from our daughter is a thief and has some kind of grudge against our daughter. I, however, have a different view on it. The way I see it, whoever is taking lunches probably needs that food more than my daughter does. If their family had means of providing packed lunches, I would assume they would do so. Same goes for putting money in an account for school lunch. My feeling is that whichever kid is stealing lunches is hungry and I don't want to compound that by making this a bigger issue. The teacher is already aware and I don't feel we need to elevate this beyond that. Our family is not in dire straits financially. We do just fine. But I know that isn't the case for everyone. And if packing 2 lunches for my daughter means that a hungry kid gets a solid meal, I'm okay with it coming out of our pockets. My wife and I got into an argument about this because she wants to send an email to anyone and everyone at the school district that she feels needs to know about this. I told her that we should wait and see if the teacher can figure out who the kid is and we can handle this without bringing the whole school district down on this kid and their family. My wife wants to set up meetings with the teacher and principal, but I told her she would need to be the one attending them, because I won't. And since she usually sleeps during the day when the kids are in school, she didn't like that. She thinks I am being an asshole by not protecting our daughter. But our daughter is not going hungry and whoever is taking her lunches isn't either, which I'm okay with. Info. You shared your perspective and that of your wife, but what about your daughter? Does she feel victimized or is she on board that the lunch thief is a hungry kid and that she is showing that child mercy? You are the asshole. It's okay to steal if you need it more, is not a good lesson for your child or other children. Would it be okay for someone to come steal your car because they need it more? What about your wallet? What if they stole your daughter's backpack or coat? All you are doing is contributing to the problem. And your daughter isn't the only child being stolen from. What if one of the other kids can't afford school lunch and is going hungry? The stealing child may be taking from someone who needs it even more than they do. This needs to be handled at an admin level, so the next step is to meet with the principal. Here's the problem I see with your approach: if it isn't discovered who is stealing lunches, then they can't receive more assistance beyond stealing a lunch. KWIM? If this child is in a neglect situation, it would be far better to know who the child is so the school can step in and offer actual assistance. I don't think you're an asshole though. I think you have a kind and generous heart. I do think this situation needs to be escalated. This kid needs help and won't receive it if their identity remains a mystery. Nah. The way I see it, whoever is taking lunches probably needs that food more than my daughter does. Well, that seems like a really dumb, short-sighted way to look at your daughter literally being robbed. You are the asshole. You are the asshole. Do you realize the lesson you are teaching your daughter? Because it's okay for someone to victimize you because whatever you have they need it more. You are setting a potentially dangerous example and now your daughter knows you care more about your romanticized view of her being stolen from than her and her well-being needs. Shame on you. You are the asshole. A fooing massive one, who is busy teaching his daughter that her possessions can be stolen by anyone who wants them, and she has no right to object, cause, we can afford it and they may need it more. For the love of God, stop this stupidity. Am I the asshole for bringing an uninvited guest to a destination wedding?
I, 26F, was invited to a wedding within my state but far enough that to attend I'd have to sleep over at a hotel for at least 2 nights if I arrived the night before, as it was planned to be a pretty much all-day affair.
I was very flattered to be invited, as I didn't think I was that close to the couple.
It was a fairly small wedding, 60 guests including the bridal party.
Obviously, as it was very small and I was possibly a second-round invitee, I didn't get a +1. Fine with me. I ultimately decided to go.
When I went to book the hotel room for my stay, I found they only had large rooms available, multiple beds or king beds, etc., as it's a popular wedding destination and is a bit fancy.
So, I thought, why not invite my boyfriend, 26M?
That way we could trade off on the long drive there and back and share the big room I would have to pay for anyways. The idea was that night we arrived we could get dinner together somewhere new and have a nice breakfast before heading back home.
While I was at the wedding events, he could just hang out in the hotel room or the pool or whatever.
The wedding went great, but then after it wrapped up, the maid of honor, who I'm closer to than the bride, was chatting with me as I walked back to my room, and I knocked on the door instead of digging through my bag for the keycard.
When my boyfriend opened the door for me, the mo just greeted him and walked off. I didn't think it was a big deal or anything.
A few days later, the mo reached out and said it was awkward and uncomfortable for me to have invited him to the hotel, and it made everyone feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they hadn't invited him.
We were both a bit surprised. No one even knew he was there because it didn't come up at all during the wedding.
It definitely wasn't a secret, and honestly, we wouldn't have thought it was a big deal if people did know. And he had only met the bride and groom like 6 times and had 0 issues with not being invited to such an intimate wedding.
Also, if it matters, I was far from the only guest who didn't get a +1, and I never asked to be given a +1 for him. I have no clue if the mo told the bride and if the bride also thinks this was inappropriate. If she hasn't, I really don't want to contact her during her honeymoon to start drama. I didn't check or anything beforehand. That's my bad, I guess. So was inviting him really a big deal? Not the asshole. Let's see.
You didn't insist on getting a +1. Throw a fit when you didn't get a +1. Tell everyone how unfair it was that you didn't get a +1. Tell anyone that your boyfriend was even there. Complain about the fact that your boyfriend was sitting back in the room alone. Sneak your boyfriend into the reception or sneak him some food or booze. Leave the festivities early to get back to your boyfriend. So basically the mo was complaining that your boyfriend existed in the same space as you?
Peeved. Not the asshole. This is really strange.
It looks like folks are trying to create a problem when one doesn't exist.
Both you and your boyfriend were happy to make the trip and for him not to intrude on the wedding. The whole incident just doesn't make sense. Not the asshole. Your boyfriend's a grown man who chose to go knowing full well he'd be spending some alone time at the hotel and having his own mini vacation while you were at the wedding. There's no reason to feel bad on his behalf. I could maybe see it being awkward if the mo wanted to or assumed she would hang out with after the wedding. After all, she did walk with you to your room, so maybe she was anticipating being invited in.
Maybe if they saw him around the hotel and felt compelled to make small talk or purposefully avoid him. But either way, who cares?
So there was a few minuets of awkwardness.
That happens in life sometimes.
I absolutely wouldn't bring it up to anyone else, honeymoon or not, unless they bring it up first. Nothing can be changed about it, so I'd say just move on. Not the asshole, you invited your boyfriend to accompany to a destination wedding.
You did not bring him to any of the wedding festivities. The maid of honor and anyone else who tells you you can't invite someone to accompany you somewhere on your dime can get stuffed.
It's none of their business. It made everyone feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they hadn't invited him.
That doesn't even make sense.
Destination weddings. We just can't win. Not the asshole. The mo is a busybody who needs to get a life. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for defending myself with my sister after taking legal custody of my nephew? My husband, 30 male, and I, 30 female, won legal custody of my nephew Kian, 15 male, in June. Since September 2022, Kian had been living with us on and off. It started out with the intent to be temporary. But my sister would take Kian back and then send him to live with us again. She'd visit him frequently at times and then go weeks without any contact. She'd vent to me about it. Then she'd complain that we weren't fulfilling our end of the agreement. Kian wanted to stay with me, my husband and our children. We knew it wasn't good for Kian to have the back and forth and inconsistency. We knew he wanted to be with us. So we asked the courts to give us legal custody instead of having a family agreement going on. Even during court proceedings, my sister would take Kian back and then send him to us again.
A therapist was involved, someone from CPS, and they ultimately decided my husband and I should have custody.
To explain background,
Kian is my sister's oldest child.
She had him with her late husband Sean.
Sean died when Kian was 5.
When Kian was 7, my sister met her second husband and she married him about 18 months after they first met. She now has more children with her second husband. Kian was distant with them from the start. He was civil to my sister's husband but also expressed that he didn't want his mom to get married again. My sister chose to ignore it at the time and convinced herself that Kian would come around and would love having a dad in the house again. He was disinterested in his younger half-siblings from the start, and it was only when my sister read some homework Kian had done and had answered a question with, "I don't have siblings," she started to take it seriously. My sister decided they needed family therapy. Kian was open that he didn't have any feelings for his half-siblings or stepdad. He hated spending time with them and wished it could be just him and his parents again.
They had some homework to do.
Kian's honesty during the homework,
that he would never treasure memories with his half-siblings, was when my sister first asked us to take him in.
She wanted him to work on that. She hoped distance would make him realize he did care or would make him more willing to try.
But it didn't, it hasn't.
He likes not seeing them.
He likes seeing my sister, misses her and gets upset when he doesn't, but he has never once missed his stepdad or half-siblings.
My sister is furious we went for legal custody and even more furious that we won. She asked how I could do that and I told her we had spoken about the upheaval not being good for anyone. But she was still back and forth with Kian. I told her I had to put him first when she was making his life so unstable. She asked how I could defend myself when I made sure Kian can't reconcile with him now. I told her she could still see him, the judge even said it. And she could always work on committing to him. She said I was punishing her just as much as Kian is and she'll never forgive me for it. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. I agree with PP, CPS does not easily take kids out of home.
But if what you say is true, that your sister asked you to take him in, they might construe that as your sister kicking him out. Are you in the US?
Is she more furious that she has lost his Social Security benefits?
Does he come with any other benefits?
Not the asshole. You're stepping up to help a kid whose mother plowed over his feelings to accommodate her own. Did I expect her to be alone and single forever? No.
But it sounds like Kian needed time and your sister wanted a new family.
She can't just expect things to go perfectly. She never cared what he wanted in the first place, why care now? It's good of you to take him in and out him first, he needs it. Good on you. You're not the a-hole.
You did what was best for Kian's stability.
Your sister is upset, but you were trying to make sure Kian had a consistent home. Sister most likely furious about the loss of the monthly SSI check. He was supporting her second family. Please save that money for your nephew's schooling. This is a similar story from the kid's point of view. Might give you some insight on how Kian is feeling. Not the asshole. Yeah.
Not the asshole, and your sister clearly likes to see herself as the victim instead of taking responsible for her own actions.
At least one is putting cane fist. Am I the asshole for my behavior at a buffet? Hi everyone, I, 28F, recently reconnected with a friend, 27F, from high school.
Let's name her Brenna. We were really close, think inseparable, but the distance after we moved away inevitably caused our friendship to dwindle.
I recently moved to her city with my husband and it was like nothing had changed.
After a few one-on-one lunches, she wanted to introduce me to some of her other friends from uni.
We decided on an upscale buffet at a hotel. I think it's relevant to include that the university she went to was known for its extremely wealthy and privileged students.
Coming from an upper-middle-class background, I wasn't really sure what to expect or what we'd have to connect on, but she assured me it'd be okay and that everyone was really down to earth.
I got along with everyone really well.
The conversations were engaging and we all bounced off of each other really nicely with the banter.
She booked it on a Monday afternoon so it'd be, relatively, less crowded, so none of us would have trouble communicating. But here is where I think everything went wrong.
There was a short queue behind me, 3 people, all in our party, one of whom included Brenna, while I was trying to scoop a stew for myself. It was a minestrone and I had accidentally grabbed a scoopful of vegetables instead of soup.
So on my second scoop, I decided to do the opposite so that I could get a balance of both. My first scoop hardly contained any soup. I stopped after 2 scoops and turned to see Brenna staring at me with an appalled expression. I was really puzzled, but I kept on walking back to our table so I wasn't blocking anyone's way, and I figured I should ask her about it later.
The rest of the lunch, I noticed Brenna acting really strange.
She was limiting her interactions with me, avoiding eye contact with me, etc.
Another friend, 28M, even asked her about this and she dismissed the question. She said, "I don't know what you're talking about." After we all said goodbye, I got a series of texts from Brenna saying how disgustingly, low class, I acted in front of her friends. I asked her what she meant and she referred to how I selectively scooped the minestrone in front of her and how it's extremely poor etiquette to pick and choose portions at a buffet. I tried explaining to her it was an accident, and I hadn't intentionally tried to do what she was explaining, but she said I was still holding up the line. I apologized for that and she hasn't responded since. I apologized to the 2 other people that were waiting behind me, but they didn't know what I was talking about. I explained to them what Brenna saw and they said she's being a pompous ass, and told me to forget about it. Now I have no idea what to feel because I initially felt extremely guilty when Brenna confronted me, but hearing these 2 say it's no big deal is really making me wonder.
I would love some other opinions. Thanks. ETA. Wow, obligatory. I was not expecting this to blow up. Comment.
But seriously, it was about soup, tears of joy nonetheless. I truly want to thank everyone for your kind words and insights.
I've made plans with one of the ladies I met.
Brenna still has not responded, but thanks to you all, I know I don't need her to, and I better hope she doesn't.
So, don't you scooped soup like a poor person.
You hear how ridiculous that sounds? Brenna is a pompous snob, simple as that.
Not the asshole. I thought you were going to describe building a food tower of the luxury items. But no, you took 2 scoops of soup. Not the asshole. This isn't a buffet etiquette thing, or a social class thing, or a money thing. Brenna is just being silly.
Not the asshole. Brenna has serious imposter syndrome. She doesn't feel good enough for these friends and spends her whole time picking and choosing specific pieces of food out of a dish would have been bad manners, but that's not what you did. It seems like Brenna has a certain image of you in her head and has, consciously or subconsciously, been waiting for you to confirm it.
Not the asshole.
This story broke me. What?
I'm sorry, but if your behavior was disgustingly low class, then why did she book a place where you need to get your portions yourselves and not getting served by staff?
With a ladle? You had to touch it?
So uncivilized.
Jokes aside, no, you are not the asshole. You didn't do anything wrong, but her behavior on this is really questionable.
If this is her view at age 27, then I would distance myself from her. Upscale. Buffet. Ha.